Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Margo Jacquot, your mental health business mentor. Always really happy to have you with us. Today, I have a guest. We're going to do something a little bit different. I have a guest who's going to talk to us about something that we know is a therapeutic intervention, but what a great way to use this same intervention on ourselves as business owners. So let me tell you about today's guest. I'm really pleased to have Tamara Herl, who is CEO of Wild Divine Coaching and Retreats. I love that name, by the way, is a spiritual guide and coach. She helps her clients work with parts of themselves that cause unwanted and unhelpful behavior. Tamara helps her clients use art therapy and internal family systems to heal unresolved trauma, flower essences to create emotional balance, energy work to unlock full potential, and connection with nature to receive divine guidance. That sounds like just a lovely way to spend your work life. That sounds fabulous. Tamara started her business because she knew countless women had become disconnected from their true self, and her services and products provide pathways to reclaim that wholeness. Welcome, Tamara Herl, and thank you for joining us.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, thank you. That's great. And Tamara and I were discussing before she hopped on. She's in Colorado, which is so beautiful near Colorado Springs. I'm in the Chicago area. Lots of interesting things happening here right now. It's October in Chicago, and we have some visitors that were kind of interesting to have. So I'm really glad to have this conversation with you today. So for those who aren't familiar, and I think folks hear of IFS, but can you please explain internal family systems and why it's important beyond the therapy, beyond being a therapeutic intervention that clinicians would use on their clients?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. And you're right, this model is so relevant today, especially because of what's happening in the world around us. So internal family systems was developed by Richard Schwartz about 40 years ago. And it's a way to really hone in on sometimes we show up in ways where we feel embarrassed about the way we showed up or we have to apologize. And what Richard Schwartz discovered was that when that happens, there are parts of us that have sort of gotten into the driver's seat and are driving our behavior. And often those parts are protector parts. And so they come off a lot of times as having very extreme ways of dealing with things. They get triggered. They're like firefighters a lot of the time, and they want to rush in and prevent something bad from happening again. So it stems from challenges that we have experienced earlier in life, often in childhood. And what Richard Schwartz discovered was that when we can work with these parts of ourselves that maybe we try to push down, or it's like we're embarrassed and we try not to let anyone else see them. But when we work with them and help them learn to trust us, then they can tell us the story of why they're doing the job that they're doing. And eventually, when we gain enough trust, then they can show us the parts that have been wounded or have been traumatized, and we can help those parts that have been wounded heal that trauma. And then the protector part can find a different job to do within the system. It's one of the most key components of this model is being able to connect with what is called self with a capital S. It's the essence of us. It's who we truly are at our core. It's an essence that can never be damaged. It's whole and complete. And it's just very wise and compassionate and courageous and calm. And there's 8 C words that are used in the model to describe 8 C words and 5 P words that describe these qualities of self. So in a therapy session, or if you're beyond a therapy session, if someone's trying to interact with a colleague, they can tap into self and embody that and then respond in a different way rather than reacting from a place of fear or anger or frustration or whatever emotions, those emotions that, they're helpful, they're signals, we need them, and they're natural. And we don't want to, a lot of the time, we don't want that part to be in the driver's seat when we're trying to negotiate something or have a conversation. because then we're coming from our emotions and it's hard to think clearly and it's hard to make good, rational, sensible decisions.
Mm. Very well
And
said.
thank you. So you asked how that can be relevant outside of the therapy room. Well, I'm thinking back to when I was in the corporate world. There were times I felt so frustrated with the way that things were happening, and I really wanted things to change, but I didn't know how to go about it. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I call it my snarky part of me that was, I remember
Mhm.
my boss would look at me or my supervisor, and he would say, I can tell by your face that you don't agree with me. And, I was doing the best I could just to keep my mouth shut and not say something inappropriate. And I would just say, I hear you. I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I didn't agree with what he was saying, but I heard him. But a lot of times I just felt angry. And so that was the way I was showing up in the workplace. And it was not helpful at all. But what happened near the end of my employment there was that I discovered internal family systems. And I was hoping, praying that the system would embrace it, because I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if, I don't know if you'd have to have a lot of trust with your supervisor in order to do this. I was thinking back earlier today, because I was thinking, have I ever trusted my supervisor enough that I would be able to use this model, as an employee with them? And I can think of back to my first professional job as a therapist. I had an amazing supervisor, and I think that we could have done that. And she could have helped me realize, oh, Tamara, you're showing up with your snarky part. What's going on? Instead of shaking the finger and saying, what's wrong with you? It's sort of like a trauma-informed approach. What's going on with you?
Mhm. Right, curious instead of accusatory. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. So I can think of practice owners, and because that's a large part of our audience, either they own their own practice and it's just them, and they're dealing with a biller, or they're dealing with an insurance company or a client who's not paying, or they're dealing with employees if they have a group practice or, something along those lines. And I can see the different parts. I do consultation for practice owners, and sometimes we're talking about money and how to approach clients, how to approach their staff around money related issues, collections, whatever. That seems to be a hot button for a lot of folks. Do we bring our compassionate self? Do we bring our traumatized self who has issues from, our childhood around money and scarcity or whatever the case may be? What part do we bring to that? So there might be competing parts that a business owner, a practice owner is trying to navigate. How does IFS help with that inner conflict?
That's a great question. And I love what you said about competing parts, because that's exactly what happens. It's sort of like, picture a tug of war happening inside of you, and you've got one part that's really wanting one thing and another part that's really wanting another thing. So, in order to navigate that, it's important to just become aware of the different parts that we have inside of us and to know that it's normal. It's just a normal thing. We all have parts. We were born with them, and then more show up as we encounter challenges along the way. And it's really normal to bring those parts into the workplace. That's what we do. That's part of our life lesson, if we're ready to embrace it and learn from that, is to learn how to notice what's happening. And one way to do it is to really pay attention to the physical sensations. And some of the parts, it can sort of sound like when they're talking inside of our head, like they have a different tone of voice, like my snarky part. She obviously, it was easy to tell when that one was
Mhm.
present. Yeah, so noticing where those parts are coming from and noticing where they show up in your body, and doing some work either on your own outside of the therapy room so that you'll know, so that you can tell if you are talking to a billing person and you start to feel that angry part, an
Mhm.
angry protector part, prompting you to say something. It takes a lot of presence. It really does. It takes practice, but the more that you practice, the better you can get at it. And one of the things that I encourage my clients to do, and I try to do it myself as well, is to use a practice like heart math,
Mm.
where you're breathing deeply and focusing on your heart and getting yourself out of that fight or flight mode, so that then you can think more clearly and you can connect with self, so that you
Mm.
can realize, oh, that's a part of that person that's showing up and is triggering
Mm.
something in me. And how do I want to respond? If I respond from this angry part, it's going to create more anger, more divisiveness. And is that going to help us accomplish what we need to accomplish? No, it's not. So it's important just to recognize those parts, know how they show up, know what triggers them, and then practice responding rather than reacting.
Exactly. Right. I love that. I have a hell no part that can be pretty robust and potent inside of me, of somebody coming at me, and I can have an immediate, like, my hand
Oh,
is up in your face, like, back off of me. Absolutely not. And that's not, as a business owner, that's not a great place to come from with staff or anybody else. I mean, quite frankly, there might be moments if somebody's actually coming at me and attacking me.
right.
These folks are not. So one strategy I've discovered is that I allow the hell no part to write something. It's usually in the form of an email that I do not send, right? But
Right.
that it requires some attention and expression. It's not just denying that and saying, oh, that's bad and I shouldn't do that and that's wrong. Right. So, how do you encourage folks to navigate some of those parts? What are some of the strategies they can use so that we're not just trying to quell or shame or offload that part, but give it some way to work out what it needs to work out so it can move on?
Exactly. I love that strategy that you've developed. That's awesome. Well, and so it's important to remember that there are no bad parts. Every part has a purpose. They are trying to protect you, and they're doing it in the only way that they know how. So one thing that I invite people to do is to make a timeline of of the experiences that they've had that have been challenging, so that you can know, oh, that's that teenager part of me. And it's just important to find a way to connect with that part. Journaling is a great way to do it. Of course, I'm an art therapist as well, so I like to invite people, make a collage of what that part, what are their qualities, and just get to know them and have a conversation. So, snarky part, give that, so I write down S for snarky. What does snarky want to say? And then I might write a different kind of S. Maybe I would put SE for self. And what does self, when self responds, oh, snarky, I see that you're really upset.
Mhm.
Tell me more about what's going on with this. What are you afraid of? What are you most
Mm,
afraid would happen? That's usually they're afraid that something will happen. So that's one of the things, is to find out what they fear. And
mhm,
also, even before that, it's just to extend gratitude towards them for doing the job that they've been doing for so long. You can ask them, how long have you been doing this job? And what does it feel like to do this job? Oh, and so you're exhausted. Oh, I'm so sorry. What could we do to help you feel better? And what are you
mhm,
afraid would happen if you stopped doing your job? And usually they'll
mm,
say, oh, I'm afraid that I'll be taken advantage of again. Because they remember a time when this part that they're protecting was taken advantage of, and the pain was so great, and it was so
mm,
overwhelming for the system, the internal system, that they don't want the system to experience that again. So they've tucked the wounded one away so that the pain isn't always bombarding the internal system of the person. So it's kind of just really, it's all about building trust with that part, the protector part at first, to start there. Let them tell their story and try to help them do their job, and try to especially let them know that they're appreciated.
mhm,
Curiosity is one of the most, well, they're all the C words are important, but curiosity really helps to just, it's an easy one to access. And you don't have to, Richard Schwartz always says, it doesn't take, you don't have to have 100% access to self in order to be able to show up the way that you want to, and for the healing and for the shifts to happen. Just a small percentage of self, if you can get in touch with that and embody that, then that can really open the door to creating shifts.
mhm. I love that. So, right, the curiosity, having room for expression, all of that takes time. And I'll tell you, when I'm talking to practice owners and, therapists in general, but particularly practice owners, I don't have time. I don't have time to do one thing or another. And they often have a busy caseload themselves. They're managing staff, they're supervising, they're dealing with the biller, right? So, and we can kind of see in the day to day some of this show up, whether it's scarcity and, no judgment, folks. I mean, I've been a practice owner for 20 some years. I've been through all of those phases, right? There was one point I was, the phrase is chief cook and bottle washer, which evidently not every generation is familiar with, but that means the person who does everything. I did the bill, I did all of the marketing, all of the billing, everything, all of the supervision, maintain, negotiating leases, maintaining the space, everything. And when we're doing that, we really genuinely don't have a lot of time. What I try to encourage practice owners to think about, because if they want their practice to grow and scale, and part of the reason they're doing practice ownership is to have more autonomy and to have more time. Boy, if we don't attend to what's keeping us on that treadmill, going faster and faster on a steeper and steeper incline, if we don't attend to that, the goal for having a group practice doesn't come to fruition. So it's kind of like it's in part a non-negotiable, and it doesn't sound like this has to be long. To do a quick journal entry, to write a quick email, I talk to people about take 5 minutes. Just pay attention, just take 5 minutes. So how would you invite somebody to do this who says, I am, and they genuinely are super busy?
Oh, I understand completely also because I've been there as well. Well, one of the things that's really important is to get rejuvenated. And the 5 minute thing works really well because that creates the space to take a breath and to feel like you do have the energy. So spending 5 minutes looking at a plant or looking out your window, or if you're able to, just to step outside and just breathe the air. And that's going to just help you get in a relaxed state so that you can have more of that self energy be present. Other things are some people just do a quick check-in at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day and just noticing, 5 minutes, just say, gosh, which of my parts were showing up today? Yeah, and then you can think about and wonder what that part is needing, and I wonder what I could be doing differently tomorrow. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time or to, like I said, to create a mandala of a certain part of yourself. Let's say there's an angry part that keeps showing up and you want to create a shift around that. So just spend 5 minutes on it a couple of times a week, just getting to know that part and extending gratitude towards that one for doing the job that they're doing.
Yeah, right. So when I've been able to remember to do this, right, which Tamara, I think for a lot of us, we get busy and that part of my brain seems to have, I don't know, gotten filed away somewhere else. But when I do take the time to do that, then it comes to me more quickly. And I think, okay, this is the reactive part. This is the hell no part. I have a scarcity part that is much smaller than it used to be. So an example would be this scarcity part I felt was part of what encouraged, caused, whatever, me to not put processes in place, not hire other people, not offload tasks, because I felt like I had to do everything myself because I didn't have the money to do it. I didn't have the money to hire somebody else. I didn't want to burden someone else. When I could look at that scarcity part and challenge it just a little bit, so I hired somebody very part-time just to answer the phone. That was it, right? And so challenging that part. So if folks, if you're listening, Tamara is smiling and nodding, right? This is kind of how this works. Challenge it a little bit. And boy, the practice, I can't tell you what a huge difference it made just having somebody answer the phone and bit by bit adding other parts, but getting out of that scarcity and realizing I could afford somebody very part-time to answer the phone. And what a difference it made in my life to have that. So you're nodding your head. What are you thinking as I'm saying all that?
I'm thinking yes, and I'm not surprised that part feels smaller now because you help that one do their job.
Right,
Right.
right.
So they become less reactive when we help them get their needs met because they're just trying to protect us. I was also thinking that another thing that would be awesome for people to do, and I know this would take a little bit of time, so maybe once a month, have a peer consultation group of other practitioners, business owners that are also wanting to incorporate internal family systems into their life and their role and their work that they do so that you could could talk about other people. It helps because then we know that we're not alone. We're not the only one that has these parts. And also finding out what other people have done, like what the example that you just shared, so that because then that one, the scarcity one, is not going to be showing up and try and saying, hey, we need to pay attention here. So
I love that. So if someone comes to you to work with you on their parts, how does that work for you? What would working with you look like? And since you're coaching now, it sounds like you can do this with people throughout the country. So folks, if you're interested in learning more about this, how would somebody connect with you and what would working with you look like?
well, people can connect with me through my website, which is www.thewilddivine.us. And what working with me looks like, the first thing that I do is just, of course, gather a lot of background information, especially related to spirituality, because this is a real spiritual model. Because when we
Mhm.
talk about this concept of self, I mean, that's the essence. I say it's like this, a spark of the divine within us. So I really
Mhm.
want to know what a person's beliefs are, belief systems. I can work with all kinds of belief systems because it's not specific to any belief system. And just really
Right.
trying to understand. So tell me about the times that you're showing up in your business or in your life in ways that don't work for you. Let's look at those. I was talking to someone yesterday who they have a part that feels like it's walking on a tightrope, and the person is doing really well overall. But then when they talked about that part, I thought, oh, we need to explore that one further. So, I helped them get in touch with where the part is located in or around their body. And then we just started having a dialogue with that part. So a lot of times we'll start by interviewing the different parts and getting to know who they are and why they do what they do. And that way we kind of we know who's at the table. I think of it as sitting around a conference table, all these parts. And on some days, there's different ones that have something to say.
Mm-hmm. That sounds lovely. And you consider this kind of a spiritual practice, which folks, I mean, obviously, this is a smart audience. That doesn't mean religious, that means spiritual.
Yeah,
It's like, who is the essence of who you are? And
exactly.
right, I think for practice owners, having that space to get back to the essence of who we are, why are we doing what we're doing? What are we trying to accomplish? We want to help people. We want more peace in our own lives. Are we accomplishing that? And if not, it sounds like maybe you would help folks look at what are the parts that are getting in the way, which is delightful.
Exactly.
Well, so Tamara Herl, anything else you'd like our audience to know today?
I would just invite everyone who listens to this to, well, first of all, I want to just say thank you so much for doing the work that you're doing, both you and Margo, and also all of the listeners, because this work is so important and it's so needed right now. It's just important for us to remember it when we look at all the chaos in the world around us that we're here for a reason. We're the ones that we've been waiting for. We can help ourselves and the people that we serve transform so that we can work more collaboratively and create peace and create more harmony when we learn how to all embody our true selves, or self with a capital S, in internal family systems, just to embody that and to respond from that place. And we can kind of tap each other on the shoulder when we're not, say, oh, it looks like, you might need it. Let's talk later. So that we
Mhm.
can respond from and be the best person that we're meant to be.
Mm, that's just lovely. And I'll tell you, folks, sitting with Tamara, she is delightful and a very calming presence. So I feel more relaxed than I did when I started, which is great because sometimes podcast recordings require a lot of energy. This one just felt like it kind of flowed and was super easy. So, folks, please do check out the Wild Divine Coaching and Retreats through Tamara Herl. And it sounds like you also do spiritual growth, spiritual coaching, spiritual guidance. So there, if you're looking for something spiritual, folks, this might be a good place. And spiritual plus, looking for IFS, this would likewise be a good place. And we'll have all your information in the show notes. But Tamara Herl, CEO of Wild Divine Coaching and Retreats, thank you so much for being here with us today, sharing your wisdom, sharing your thoughts, sharing your very calm self. Capital S, I hope this was your calm self who showed up today. It's lovely. And all of you, thank you for joining us. Always lovely to have you here. Come back and join us again next time. Be well.